These meetings, these URAC meetings are recorded and they are posted onto the website where all of our committees are posted. And anything that goes into the chat stays with the minutes and is a part of the record. So be aware of that. Okay, now we'll get going. We've done introductions already. Alan's brought the meeting to order for recording's sake here. And tonight we have a couple presentations. The first presentation is with Sara King and Jeannine Rustad. I've known Jeannine for many years when she was out at the city of Hillsborough doing wonderful planning work out in Hillsborough. Got to sit on various committees at the metro regional level. And Jeannine slid over to THPRD a few years ago. And so she's more of our partner here, right, in Beaverton and what's going on here locally. Sara King joined the city over a year ago. She started when COVID started, so happy 1 year plus anniversary, Sara. Sara's with PDC for a good spell and then with Portland Public Schools for a number of years as well. And Sara and Jeannine have been putting together kind of the start of what you're going to hear about tonight on the Downtown Parks Master Plan in joint between THPRD and the city. For the URAC members who are here tonight, good news is that, and I like to always remind you, is the fact that when we have projects kind of just starting off, this is one of the first stops that is usually made when it's a project that affects something in the downtown area or renewal. And so, yeah, these will be kind of the first presentations from both of these presentations tonight as we dig deep into some great projects that are going to be hitting our streets here soon. So feel free to provide as many comments and questions that you have because Jeannine, Sara, and Molly will love it. So, with that, Jeannine and Sara.
Let's unmute. Okay, good evening. Yeah, as Tyler said, Jeannine and I are going to give this presentation. It's the first time we've given it, so it might be so we're experimenting on you all, and we appreciate it. Okay, let me pull up our presentation here. I guess before I do, let me say that Jeannine and I are going to trade off. I'll start off, and so it's going to be a joint presentation. Here we go. Okay, can everybody see this?
Looks good.
All right, thank you. Great. Okay, Tyler did most of our introductions, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time. You've already met Jeannine and I. All right, so as you all know, we both the city and THPRD have done a lot of work. Well, actually, let me step back and say the city have done a lot of work planning downtown. Recently, we just adopted we undertook the downtown design project and adopted the downtown urban framework plan, which is here on the slide. And that plan was very focused on things like increasing accessibility, increasing density, vitality, increasing the business climate, and increasing connectivity to and from various places downtown. And however, if you look downtown, if you look closely at this framework plan slide, you'll see some parks, open spaces outside of this area that's illustrated here. But we really don't have many park and recreation spaces actually within what we consider the downtown core. We have the emerging plaza at the Research Center. We have the plaza at the Round. We have City Park down at the south end of our downtown. And then we have the THPRD Swim Center. But beyond that, we really don't have much downtown. So when you look at our downtown framework plan, there really is something that's missing, and that is a framework of parks, open spaces, plazas, and trails. So the city, as well as THPRD, have decided that it's time for us jointly to focus some planning on providing these sorts of amenities downtown. In addition to parks, open spaces, trails, and plazas, we have an opportunity to figure out if there's ways to partner with our sub-basin strategy for stormwater management downtown, to provide additional wildlife habitat, to connect to other sorts of amenities downtown. And another important thing that open space can do is that it can incent downtown development. And there's a synergy between providing open spaces, parks, and trails and attracting new investment downtown. Now, we also want to be really careful about that, because we know that when we attract new investment downtown, sometimes housing prices rise, and that can lead to negative consequences such as displacement. So we want to be really cognizant of the role that parks, open spaces, trails, and plazas play in attracting new development, but also looking for ways to offset those potential displacement impacts.
So along with the work that Beaverton has done downtown, following the downtown framework plan, which we did participate in, we updated our parks functional plan. And you can see the circled area, which is the downtown. That gray means we are parks deficient. This is an area that we know we need to provide with more park and recreation opportunities. So one of the steps we've already taken when we updated our parks functional plan was to add in new types of parks. Before, we had neighborhood parks, which were targeted between 2 to 4 acres, community parks, and some greenways. We've added urban plazas, pocket parks, anticipating that parks are going to look different downtown. The other thing we've started to do is actually budget for buying land in this area. So when we updated our SDC methodology, I worked with the city to get estimated land values, as well as budgeting for the development of land we eventually buy. And Sarah's heard me say it a lot as we've built the partnership between us working together, is we are ready to go with downtown development. Next slide. So another thing that just makes this ripe, I just mentioned the building partnership. While we have been the parks provider for Beaverton since our inception, it wasn't until early 2020 that we actually formalized this relationship in a urban service agreement. So now it's really time to put this partnership to work and start this joint planning effort. Sara?
Okay. All right, so we're proposing to work together on a framework plan, but what does a framework plan mean? Right now, we're envisioning the framework plan to be a high-level plan, meaning we are going to look at general locations of parks and open space amenities. We're not going to look at specific parcels necessarily, unless they happen to be already in public ownership, but we're going to stay fairly high level. That gives us the flexibility down the road, as Jeannine talked about, when purchasing property. We have the flexibility. We're not locked into a very specific location. Jeannine talked about the different kinds of parks. We will be considering the different types of parks that we'll put in different locations. And I've mentioned them here, and Jeannine mentioned them just a minute ago. We are also going to look at what we call characteristics, elements, or materials that can help create a cohesive sense of public spaces. There are varieties of ways you can do this. For example, we may decide that we really want all of our, I'm just throwing this out, we may decide we want all of our open spaces to reflect and refer to Beaverton Creek and its tributaries. That's one example. Or perhaps we all want to have particular materials in our parks. You see that in downtown Portland, in the 3 parks in the Pearl District, they all have the wood boardwalk on the west side of the park, east side of the parks. So there's different ways that we can look at creating a cohesive sense of public space and a real sense of place downtown through this framework planning effort. We are also going to look very carefully at downtown land uses, densities, and neighborhood character. They will really help inform what kinds of parks we put where. We think of this as integrating with the downtown urban design framework. It's almost an add-on or an appendix, if you will, to the urban design framework. So we're going to work with all the good work that was done with the design framework. And I think, you know, we're going to be thinking about what kinds of land uses are here, what kind of parks can respond or work with those certain types of land uses, so that down the road, when we acquire property, then we'll start getting into more specific site design work. It also sort of sets the stage for a situation where we perhaps either THPRD or the city, or we jointly buy a large parcel or assemble many parcels into a development site. And we want to do some down the road, some cohesive planning of both private development and public parks. So thinking about land uses, densities, neighborhood character, and what kind of development we want to incent downtown with these spaces is going to be an important part of this work. And then, as Jeannine talked about, we are ready to go. The implementation strategy is going to be really critical. It's going to be an important part of this plan. How do we implement it? How do we get from A to B? Plan goals. There are a variety of plan goals here. One is to reflect our community aspirations and priorities established through prior and concurrent planning efforts. So we've done, as you all know, we've done a lot of planning work downtown over the last, say, 10 years. There have been a lot of good ideas put out there. We've made a lot of pretty pictures, and there's a lot that we can work off of. Also, we have some concurrent, and I will say THPRD has also been doing a lot of community efforts and a lot of community planning. Moreover, we have some concurrent planning project efforts that we want to integrate as well, such as the downtown equity strategy, such as the Loop project, and the sub-basin strategy that's going on for downtown. So we want to look very carefully at past work and at concurrent work and build on that. As I talked about before, we want to create amenities that create a distinctive urban character. Importantly, we want to make sure that our parks and open spaces are welcoming, inclusive, and accessible to everyone. We want to create an action-oriented implementation strategy. And to piggyback on what Jeannine was saying, we have a nascent THPRD City of Beaverton partnership here. We can work together to build a really exciting downtown recreation and open space frame. What do I want to say? We can create a pretty exciting blueprint for the future. Okay, other aspects of the plan, THPRD and the city will be active. Actually, Jeannine, were you going to talk about this one? I'm sorry, I've got my notes.
You can take it.
Yeah, I had to run upstairs when I lost my connection. I've got all my notes downstairs. So a couple other.
If you want, I can. I'm comfortable. Okay, so we've talked back and forth of who has the lead. So we are going to be partners in this, truly partners. While the city will contract with a consultant, we plan on making joint presentations and really making joint decisions. What we've talked about is if we can't agree, then hopefully we'll have a good consultant that can help us. We also realize that in an area such as downtown, it's going to be a mix of private open space and public open space. And how do those interact? Think of your cafe that may spill onto a plaza, or you have a multi-use development that might have some private open space, but hopefully we can weave all these uses together to really create a living room for downtown. Again, we want to build on the ongoing engagement efforts of both THPRD and the city. We just adopted our vision for the next 20 years. And in the engagement we did there, which was a community-led engagement, we received over 100,000 comments. So we have a pretty good handle on what people want. We don't want to repeat this work. We know a lot of what we've heard, that downtown is going to be the area to implement that, large gathering spaces. The other thing we also know, that an area like downtown doesn't develop overnight. So while we want from the implementation plan, we want those immediate actions that either we can take, the city can take, or private property owners. But we also want to make sure that this plan is relevant for the long term, say a 20 or 30-year period. And I just covered the last two ones there. So Sarah,
right. Yeah, sorry. I also don't have my mouse, so I'm playing around here. Okay, let's talk about our plan boundary. We are going to, traditionally when we do a planning effort, we have what we call a project boundary, and it's usually a single boundary. But in this case, we decided we really need to think a little more broadly than downtown, even though the focus is on downtown. So we've got our downtown plan boundary here shown in blue, and that's going to be where we will focus the siting, the general siting of new facilities. That will be the focus of our framework plan. However, it's going to be really important for us to consider the larger context, and as Jeannine even talked about, perhaps even the needs of citywide citizens as well, of course, into the kinds of spaces we create downtown. We'll be creating spaces both for the people that work and live there, as well as the people that go downtown to visit. But we really want to be cognizant of the area immediately around downtown for a couple of reasons. One, what happens around downtown influences what happens in downtown, in that we know that there are some existing parks and open space outside of downtown. We know there are trails and bike routes and other ways that people get to and from downtown. And we want to make sure that we give that good consideration. Excuse me. Not to mention Beaverton Creek and its tributaries, which are an important element of open space themselves. We want to make sure that that area immediately around downtown influences our thinking in downtown. Moreover, as I indicated earlier, we know that the kinds of projects that we create downtown can actually have positive and negative impacts in downtown and even around it. Thinking primarily around the potential impact of increasing property values and housing prices and office and retail rents. We want to be very cognizant of the impact that these improvements might make to downtown and how that might ripple out concentrically beyond downtown. So for that reason, we've sort of got a hard boundary and a soft boundary, if you will.
So as Sara mentioned, both our agencies have undertaken a lot of community engagement. There's a lot going on regionally as well. And with our focus, I should mention, and Sarah's alluded to this, that at THPRD, it's not just DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. We add an A for access. So we are very cognizant that when we do engage folks, we want to make sure that we are targeting populations that have historically been underserved. And that's a great thing of partnering with Beaverton, is we are like minds in this, that we need to be very cognizant of that. I should mention that as Sara mentions, displacement and housing affordability, that when we adopted our new system development charge methodology with the leadership of our board, we are providing waivers for affordable housing, and we're on the city's housing, it's HOP, housing opportunities planning effort, and seeing how we have other ways to partnership. So we are all in on these efforts. We want to make sure that when we do community engagement, it's effective. It is asking the right questions at the right time. And as the last sentence there, we don't envision a dedicated citizen advisory committee. And we are still working through with our conversations. I'm bringing in our communications department to see how we can be most efficient without asking a dedicated group to come to the table. So next slide. Budget. It's always the question. We have a $100,000 budget. This is again a partnership, so we will be seeking $25,000 from the Urban Renewal Agency. The city is putting in $25,000 and we are putting in $50,000. Even though our budget hasn't been adopted, these funds are coming out of system development charges. So despite the fact that our budget was very hard hit with COVID, we know we have these funds. Our schedule, after several months of conversations about this, it's fun to actually see this schedule that we're about to kick this off. In July, we will go out with a request for proposals. July, August, we'll get an IGA because we are sharing funds. We do need an intergovernmental agreement, so we'll go to our boards. At the same time, we'll be introducing the project to Bureau, the City Council, and our board. Also in August, we will select the consultant team. We are going to do that jointly. And then September, get the contract signed, and then September, October, get the work underway.
Okay, it's time for questions, and I'm going to stop sharing so we can all, well, so Jeannine and at least so I can see you all. You all may be able to see yourselves, but I can't see you. There we go. Okay, so we're going to open up for questions or comments.
I had a question. So you went through this a little bit, but I wasn't entirely clear on it. So you guys are you're going to hire a consultant. They're going to come back with a proposal of some sort. And then what are the roles at that point of both the city and THPRD? Is it you guys are just going to put your heads together and make a decision, or is it each side going to pick some of what they like? How's that going to work?
We want to create a common vision for this. So Sara and I will be joint project managers. We will hopefully early on in the process be able to get a joint city council and THPRD board work session together. If not, there's going to be a lot of the Jeannine and Sara show going to our respective boards and agencies to inform and get feedback. The hope is at the end that we will get joint approval of the framework plan by both the city council and the board, our board.
Gotcha.
Eric, were you? Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, what are you envisioning, if any, that Bureau's role will be in that process?
Well, first and foremost, great question. Bureau will be asking to adopt an intergovernmental agreement that shares its funds, part of its funds, some of its funds for this project. When we, let me see, I have to think, I believe, and I've got to check this out actually, this is a good question for Tyler and I to talk about. I believe the Bureau and City Council have to approve the contract because of the joint funding. And then of course, we'll have periodic check-ins with work products with the Bureau board as well. And then the plan itself, I'm assuming, we haven't talked about this so far, but I'm assuming that the plan itself will probably be adopted both of the City Council and the Bureau, and of course THPRD's board as well.
Thank you.
I have a question. It's really great that you have needs assessment information that you're going to kind of base your plans on instead of, you know, I don't know, the landscape architect's view of what's aesthetically pleasing or something like that. I'd be interested, and I don't know if you're prepared to comment on this, but I'd be interested in just a quick overview of what kinds of aspirations and priorities the community has when it comes to parks, you know, and especially as that maybe bears on underserved populations.
Jeannine, do you want to talk about that, since you've done a lot of outreach and you were part of the design, downtown design project, and I was not?
Well, you know, I'll start with our vision, which I just happen to have my copy right on my desk. With the last statement, our vision came up with 4 goal areas. One is welcoming and inclusive. And that's when we were talking, we want this plan for downtown to be relevant for today, for people who live there, for people who work there, but also really thinking of the destination that Beaverton is becoming. And I say this with pride because, as I mentioned, I live 2 miles from downtown. So this is also my playground. We want play for everyone. So whether you're a toddler to a senior, accessible and safe. And this is something that has really been discussed even in the early phases with us in the city, that whether it's the natural areas or parks, with everything that's going on in and around us, making sure everyone feels safe, and then preserving natural spaces. I can tell you from the downtown design framework, when we talked parks, dog parks was a big one. But from our vision, we do want a large gathering area. I think some of that is going to be provided by the city through the new plaza at the Performing Arts Center. But I think we'll have to flesh out, and we're actually going through a process right now of the Vision Action Plan prioritizing, but making sure we are capturing all our audiences, again, the visitors, the residents, and everyone of every age. And what we've talked about with this hierarchy is in the more commercial core, the parks might look different than as you get to the edges of the plan area where there's more residential, looking at the demographics of who we have there. You know, you might see in those areas, that's where we get the dog parks. Do we need more community gardens in and around this area? Because as the housing that's built, we're seeing the apartments, the condos, we need to make sure we're giving people that area to play.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. And I'm really glad to hear about preserving the natural areas. Seems like they need to be enhanced though too. Having an office right by the creek there, one of the best days of my commute to work was when I saw workers from the city down there in the creeks pulling these large pieces of trash out of the creek. You know, and I wonder, you know, what if there are plans to kind of enhance that area, preserve, you know, once you get it enhanced, preserve the enhanced quality of it.
Typically, when we go into a natural area, we are looking to enhance. We've talked about just preliminarily as the creek as a unifying factor for downtown. And I think if we are able to open more of that area up and invite people to it, absolutely, we need to enhance. It's something we talk about internally. When you do enhance a natural area, how much access do you give? But the access also does give ownership.
Other questions, comments? Are there particular people? Oh yeah, Oswaldo.
Thank you. So I heard that you are planning on having some community engagement through your communications department. but it seems like the time frame for this is relatively short. How do you plan on accomplishing that? And you mentioned something about asking the right questions, but are you also asking those right questions in the right languages?
That's why I'm involving our communications department, and Sarah's working with the city's communications, because absolutely, we have expanded from Spanish to looking when we go into, usually it's right now we've been doing neighborhood parks. We look at the demographics, we look at who we are asking the questions of to make sure we are either having the live translators or providing other translations. Sara, because I know that's one of our questions, is asking you all, who should we be talking to from your point of view?
You know, Oswaldo, you raised a really good question, something I would like to revise the slide to show, and that is we didn't talk about the duration of this plan. We talked about when the plan would get started, which would be in September of this year, but we didn't talk about how long we think the plan is going to take to complete. And I think right now we're thinking it's, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 months to complete this process. But we didn't put that in the slide, and I think I'm gonna add that because I think that's a great question or comment. But yeah, and then to turn it over to Jeannine's, if there are particular organizations or people you want to make sure we reach out to, please let us know.
Thank you. If I could just add another thing, and as I was thinking about this, the more places, plazas or parks that we have with the increase in homelessness, I don't know if this will be then places that will be seen as places for homeless to come in and just spend the night, or throw garbage in the creeks or whatever. What are we doing to alleviate that? I mean, you mentioned about displacement, a little bit of gentrification, maybe. What's the plan for the city for that?
Yeah, that's a great question that has multiple answers, or is going to take multiple efforts. In the big picture, as you may know, we are trying to increase the amount of affordable housing that we're building in the city, and Washington County is doing that as well. It's a big effort to build as much affordable housing we can so we can keep people housed. That said, we also know that we are going to be relocating the emergency shelter that's currently located at the Beaverton Community Center. We don't know where that's going to go yet, but we know that, and we've been talking to Washington County about a partnership for that work. I know that other jurisdictions in Washington County are also looking at solutions for homelessness. So there's the kind of macro, what are we doing to give people access to housing and social services and prevent them from becoming homeless in the first place. Then the other part of that is how do we manage space, whether it's homeless people, whether it's people just vandalizing property, that's a property management issue. Jeannine can probably talk more about that than I, but I think as we create more spaces downtown, those are going to be very important questions for us to consider and answer. We don't want to create new parks and open spaces that we can't maintain, right? That we can't keep as spaces for people to use.
And we have tried very hard. Again, we want our parks to be safe for everyone. And if there is large homeless camps, as a single woman, that can detract from your feeling of safety. So what we have done, we've just actually changed the name of our park patrol to, I think it's Park Security Services. But historically, when we find homeless camps, whether it's along our trails, a lot of times it's in natural areas. And again, we want to protect those natural areas. We work with, whether it's the Beaverton Police, the county sheriffs, other service providers. It's not just an eviction of the houseless folks, it's providing them the services. Can we help them get somewhere? And it's something we're going to have to talk about as we go through this. I can see us bringing in our park safety services to make sure we are considering these aspects, because it is a growing problem. Hopefully also with the more recent Metro bond on the wraparound services, there will be more resources available for us to help folks. It's not an easy answer.
Yeah, that's not. Thank you, Oswaldo, for that. And in the interest of time, and Jeannine, Sara, thank you for your presentation. And then also I want to give Molly certainly her due time for her presentation. So if we have anything else, we'll go through Tyler. But thank you guys. It's great to hear the partnerships that go on with the City of Beaverton, as always, and THPRD rocks. So thank you both for your presentation.
Thank you. Yes, and feel free to, Tyler, send any questions my way.
Great, thank you all.
Thanks, Jeannine. Thanks, Sara.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And so I'll do a quick introduction of Molly. Some of you know Molly from previous parking interactions that she has come, but it has been a while since Molly has visited us. I see her almost every day, or at least hear her voice on the phone. So yeah, Molly's got a ton of things going on, and she wants to kind of give you an update on all those things that are happening, and kind of a big push on a special project that you'll be learning more about. In the agenda that we sent out on the email, there was also a parking survey. I assume Molly will spend a little bit of time talking about that tonight. If you have not filled out that parking survey, please spend about 5 to 10 minutes to do so and provide some good feedback. So Molly, thanks for joining us tonight. Hopefully your girls aren't missing you, but appreciate you being here with us.
I make no promises that you won't hear my children in the background. It is getting ready for bedtime. So in the interest of time, so that I can maybe make it in time for a little bit of that, thank you for having me here. It's nice to see some of your faces after a long time. And I am going to try to, I'm going to go through a really quick presentation just to give you an overview of sort of the 3 major projects we have in parking going on right now. As Tyler said, there's a lot of pieces of all of those projects that are keeping me quite busy, but we have 3 really exciting things going on in Beaverton right now that I think many of you have heard me talk about the hopes and dreams of getting these things accomplished. I'm going to attempt to share my screen, which is always a fun activity for me to try. Let's try this. Do you see my parking presentation? Get a nod. Okay, perfect. So we've got 3 sort of major projects going on right now. The first one is the parking garage, which is not new to any of you. You guys know that that's going on. It's been going up since November of 2019. We were successful. We ran a successful procurement process for our access system for the garage, which is a big accomplishment for us. We're going to have a gated garage. There's going to actually be a control system. We selected flash parking for that hardware and software, so it will be a gated access. It will. We have the equipment. We're ready to install it, but we're waiting for a few more pieces of the garage to be complete. We definitely don't want to install that until they're done bringing heavy equipment in and out. The last thing we want to do is damage those machines before we actually get to use them. But it will be up and operational at the time of the garage opening. The next thing we have going on that many of you have heard me talk about many times over the last 4 years that I've been with the city is a need for a bit of a change in how we do parking compliance enforcement And then, of course, now we've got garage operations and maintenance to deal with. So about 2 weeks ago, we actually selected a team to come in for our downtown parking compliance program. The company that's coming in is called well, we are going to Bureau for contract approval. Let me be clear that Bureau has not approved this contract yet. We go next week, next Tuesday. But we intend to award this 2-year pilot program, which is specific to downtown parking enforcement, to a company named SC Plus, and they have partnered with a software company named Passport. Many of you may know Passport better as Parking Kitty. If you use the app for parking in downtown Portland or in downtown Vancouver, Washington, Passport is the software behind Parking Kitty, but they're an international company. They also have a lot of software around parking permits and parking compliance and enforcement. So that's actually more what we're looking for from them. That's their involvement in this project, is their software for compliance and parking citations, which we're hoping. This is not a goal to write parking citations. It's a goal to get people to use our parking, as we've had those signs up for many, many years on parking time limits. So that has, once contract has been approved and signed, it has about a 90-day ramp up. So we're aiming for a fall 2021 start on that project. The other one, the big one that we've got going on that involves the survey that Tyler just mentioned, is our downtown parking management and action plan. This project was actually supposed to kick off back in March of 2020. And in fact, many of you were part of my guinea pig community engagement project on that in February of 2020, where I came and talked to you all, and you guys I gave you a magic wand to tell me about your parking hopes and dreams. I gave you some poker chips to tell me what you thought some of the biggest issues and solutions were for downtown. Thank you for that. That information is still very helpful and very relevant. We finally actually kicked the project off in March of 2021. And right now, the biggest step we're on is this community engagement survey. It went out a couple of weeks ago. I'm sure Chase could give us the exact date. It is live until June 30th. Currently, it is an online survey. It is released in 3 different languages. It is available in English, Spanish, and Korean. We have the ability to translate it into other languages if there is another request for that. Chase has been running around town, putting up A-frames with a QR code to access it, passing out flyers on how to access it. We've had many community members, particularly business owners and employees, pass it along to other community members. We have over 600 responses already, and it has not been live for a full 2 weeks yet. It is looped in with some questions about our open air Beaverton program, which obviously impacts parking because it is using right-of-way space for outdoor dining. And we are also, Chase and Kelly are out there on foot trying to drum up, interest in this survey, getting folks to take it. Chase is going to be going to a couple of senior housing locations with a laptop in hand to help folks who maybe don't have direct access to a computer or want to figure out how to access the survey and help them get their information out there. So it's really important to us, while it's focused on downtown, it's really important to us to get information from the entire community of Beaverton. And that's business owners, property owners, visitors, residents, everyone, as much as we possibly can. Our next effort in community engagement is focus groups. And those focus groups will be conducted with specific community groups in whatever language they need us to conduct it in. Our affordable housing group that is part of our development division has had a lot of success in getting information from groups that are traditionally not reached. And it's really important to us to make sure that we include as many community members as possible. We're willing to provide them in-person translation or through our other translation efforts. The other thing that we are also really focused on right now as part of this action plan is making sure that we look at all of these projects that are going on downtown. So we just heard about the open space plan. We've got all kinds of development going on both, through our restaurant strategy, south of Canyon, to all of the work going on in Beaverton Central, and the downtown design framework and all of that, making sure that none of this is happening in a vacuum, and that all of the parking management recommendations that come out of this effort are geared towards the big picture and everything that's going on in Beaverton. It's not an easy task. The estimated completion for this project is fall of 2021, which means that I'm hoping to come back to URAC in a few months with some actual draft recommendations for you all to look at. Some main ideas of the DP map, or whatever you want to shorten it to, because it's a mouthful, is looking at parking through an equity lens, looking at both community education as well as community-led information, providing strategies that are adaptable for city needs, and focusing on a positive parking experience. Parking can be the first and last thing somebody experiences in Beaverton, and we want to make sure that it's pretty easy to navigate and friendly, and we want people to come back, and parking can play a big part of that. So the nice thing about this action plan, and what makes it different from your traditional parking study, is that it is data-driven, and it is based on strategies and thresholds. So we're not just going to get a bunch of recommendations from our consultant coming in and saying, okay, here's all the things you could do. But it's going to actually have it's kind of an if-then, or pick your own adventure. If you read those books back when you were a kid, it's okay, if you're here and this, the loop project has happened, here are some recommendations that could be first, second, third, but maybe the community of Beaverton thinks that the first idea really doesn't fit with the community goals. Well, then we don't need to do that. Like, that recommendation can go away, or that recommendation can come back 10 years down the line when maybe it does fit into our city goals. So it's meant to be more of an active, almost a living document, instead of just your standard, here's your plan, here are your recommendations, do with them what you will. So with that, because I want to give everybody an opportunity to ask questions, because I know that there have been some parking questions that have come up in other presentations, as well as I know that Case has a few more community engagement questions to ask you all, that I want to keep this as brief as possible. Thank you. And I'm going to quit sharing my screen unless anybody wants to see a map, just so that I can see everybody.
So Molly, can you help us understand the potential scope of the, I guess the recommendations for changes that you could do? I mean, obviously there's some things you could do with the enforcement of the parking or changing the spots, but I mean, if people are like, oh, we need more parking, we're not throwing another parking garage up, right? Or I guess just help with the scope.
So okay, so there. I mean, that's an entire management plan right there, what you just asked. So the scope could be anything from looking at what our time regulations are on the street. So right now, the large majority of them are 2 hours, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Well, we're actually hearing from a number of the restaurants that they think that the regulations should be longer, that they should go till 8 p.m. This is an example. I'm not saying this is what's going to go into the final recommendations, but so we're taking a look at that. Like, are the hours on the street actually serving the folks that need them? Are the enforcement hours? So that's one thing. That's one concept. Another one is, yes, looking at the size of the parking spots, the tick marks. We've already gotten a lot of feedback on those in the survey. Bike parking, multimodal access. I mean, that's a big one. Providing better multimodal access actually reduces your demand on parking. So thinking about what other ways can we bring people downtown? So working really closely with downtown design concepts, the loop concepts, things like that are sort of bringing together all of those those ideas behind transportation, not just parking. Yes, additional parking supply is always an option. When we hit that threshold, that's something that we'd have to look at. But also using our existing supply better. So one of the things that you'll see if you take the survey is that we actually ask the question of, did you know that it's okay to park in the West Library lot where the farmer's market is if you're going to a restaurant downtown? Most people, at least 50%, have said, no, I didn't realize I could do that. And you can. So that's 115 parking spaces that generally, if you drive by the library, even pre-COVID, that if you drive by the library, was at about maybe 25% full on a good day. So, really trying to point out those opportunities for folks that maybe they didn't think about before. And so there's, I'm going to just throw it out there. There's always an opportunity for paid parking if we hit a certain threshold. That is always something that we could evaluate down the line. Is the city there yet? I'm going to say no, like we haven't hit that threshold yet, but we are getting close. We were getting close pre-COVID, and we will see how things ramp back up. That is not the goal of this plan. I want it to be very clear that this plan is not there to implement paid parking. This plan is there to say paid parking is one of your multiple options when you've hit an 85% demand 80% of the time on the street. So the scope is something as simple as change this parking code so you can actually enforce X to, yeah, let's overhaul the system and change the hours and put in paid parking and build another garage. So it could go from as small as like, let's just tweak these few things to sort of the grand 10-year plan or 15-year plan.
Okay. And I remember when you came last year, one of the big issues that we had brought up as a group was things like the accessibility from some of the parking spots. Like, is it well lit? Are there sidewalks? Things like that. Is that a situation where you go back to the city and say, the parking's here. This is something that you guys need to fix? And
excellent question. And we actually have an adjacent project going on right now called Improved Routes to Parking. And it is looking at exactly those things. And it's actually a city internal team looking at those things saying, okay, like, if we want people to park at the West Library lot, for example, and get to Restaurant Row, how well lit is Washington Street? How well lit is Second or First? And looking at what are our opportunities to make that space between feel less cumbersome, feel more inviting. And some of that is through development, some of that is through lighting, some of that is through landscaping, some of that is through sidewalk repair. And the lead on that, Katie Kiyotami, I'm not sure if you guys have met Katie yet, but Katie is, she's already put together sort of this internal evaluation of like all of these issues. I mean, she's gone out and she's walked it at night with a couple of other City of Beaverton staff and looked at the actual roadway and the lighting. And so that is key. And that is something that we will use these sort of collaborative recommendations to come up with something that is not only like, here's the parking, let's use it, but let's also make that experience in between better.
Got it. Thank you.
Hey, Molly. First of all, congratulations on 600 responses. That seems like an awful lot in such a short period of time. That's pretty amazing. So
thank you.
I'm interested to hear that number. Just three quick things. Flash parking you mentioned for the secure parking for the parking garage. Is that anything different than what we used to drive up, grab a ticket, pay on the way out? Kind of, you seem pretty excited about it, but.
It is exactly that. So it's okay. Both ticket, like paper ticket, as well as mobile payment. Like you'll have the ability to pay on, but we're still figuring out that financial structure. So again, I did say we're not ready for paid parking on the street. The garage is designed to be a paid parking facility, but what that financial structure is going to look like is still to be determined. That equity lens is really important to us. We want to make sure that we are making the parking accessible to as many community members as we possibly can. But yeah, it is your standard. You drive up, you take the ticket, the gate goes up, you go in. It's got a few other like newfangled software things that allow us to sort of track the ticketing on the back end. But from the user experience, fingers crossed, it's relatively simple for, it's not going to be something new and out there.
Okay. And then I remember, I'm like Eric, going back to last February, and you mentioned something about a parking app. So if I know I'm going to this restaurant, and you mentioned something about an app where that's at, and then the other one was, I was quite interested in the public-private partnership. So KeyBank has certain parking spaces, but they close at 4:30, but you can use it free, kind of stuff.
Yeah, so Columbia Bank is the one that's still doing that program with us, as well as Dulciderm. So that is actually a shared parking, an after-hour shared parking program that we kicked off and have had the Beaverton Downtown Association lead that effort. We've got a lot of very hesitant business owners, and I don't blame them. It's their property and they're responsible for it. We have a lot of people that are asking, well, why can't I just park in their parking lot? And unfortunately, I can't just be like, sure, go ahead, because it's not my property. But we would love to see that program grow, especially as we figure out a better management strategy. If we've got enforcement on the street and people want to stay longer, where are there opportunities where there's existing parking for us to sort of fill in? Because it really seems, we really want to right size our supply. So continuing a shared program parking like that, a shared parking program like that is something that we would really love to encourage. So if you guys know people that might want to share their parking after hours, I definitely encourage them to get in touch with the BDA or me or Chase or Tyler. We're all happy to point people in the right direction in that effort. The other thing, the parking app, we have our interactive map that is mobile friendly. So it's just our beavertonoregon.gov/parking, and there's an interactive map on it that will tell you where there is parking. It's not going to give you that like real time, there are X number of spaces available in this lot. We're not quite there yet, although we could get there, and depending on some of those strategies that come out of this action plan. But right now, in our best effort to keep that map up to date, it will be like, this is private parking, this is public parking, you can go here. It does have, like, if you click on it, it will tell you that like the West Library / Farmers Market lot has 115 spaces in it. It won't tell you that 25% of them are occupied, but it will say, okay, if I want to go here, there are 115 spaces in this parking lot. And that's on our website now.
The local businesses, are they concerned about potential liability if someone slips and falls in their parking lot?
That's exactly what it is. It's liability and it's and damage, both personal liability as well as what if somebody runs into my trash can and knocks it over and then I have to clean it up.
So it seems to me like, and I can't imagine you haven't thought about this, like there's this tension between parking and these other concerns, including stuff that we've talked about on this commission. There's the message of, look, we've got plenty of parking for you and it's easy to access and so on, with the message of, get out of your cars, maybe take transit. What about the environment? And there's actually been a lot of concern on this commission about traffic flow as we bring people in. Can you kind of comment on how you've dealt with those tensions and address those?
I mean, that's a great observation and a great thought. And you're absolutely right. There is a lot of tension. There's a lot of tension between development and parking, and how much is the right amount, and who has access, and is parking associated or disassociated with a development? How do you encourage people not to drive when 90% of our population, even if they don't drive every day, owns a vehicle? So they still need a place to put it. I try to work really closely, not only with our development, I mean, I'm in the development division, but with our developers, with our transportation planners, with our traffic engineers, with our community members, as much as I can, around finding that balance. And that balance is never going to be perfect, because one person's needs are very different from the next person's needs. And so if you shift this, I like to sort of describe parking as you kind of get those, do you ever have those balloon toys or water toys where you squeeze one end and the other end blows up, and then you squeeze somewhere else, and you can't ever get it to like take full shape? That sort of how parking works. It's like, okay, well, if we shift this over here, then we're hearing about a problem over here. And then so you try to fix that over there, and all of a sudden you've got a problem over here. And so we're trying really hard. One of the goals behind this parking compliance program is that the officers that are going to be out there are actually called parking ambassadors. And one of their goals is not actually to make people feel uncomfortable about following, to feel like, oh, well, I have to run back to my car because I'm going to get a ticket and I don't want the ticket and they're going to be mean about it. And it's actually to help people understand, why do we have these regulations? If somebody wants to know, like, these folks are going to be out there, they want to be part of the community. They want to know the businesses. They want to know the customers. They want to provide a friendly experience. They want to provide opportunities for questions, for clarity. And we want to be able to provide information. And even if that information is, I never want to drive down here again, how else do I get here? For them to even know, like, well, you could take, where do you live? Could you take Max? Do you ride a bike? Where, what else could we do to make your experience more comfortable? And so that's, there's a lot of tension behind, people are passionate about parking. I mean, crazy passionate. People want their parking space. And they want it right where they want it. And if it's not right where they want it, it is not okay. And it's a struggle because we have a community with a wide understanding and a huge variation of needs. And so it's putting as much information and as many options and choices out there as possible to try to meet those needs that we're trying to do with some of these programs. I don't know if that really answered your questions around tension, but it's not an easy process. And believe me, I've been yelled at a lot in my career.
In those plans, are there also including electric vehicle charging stations?
Yes, excellent question. So we are back in 2017. I'm going to get this wrong, but the Oregon Building Board, an Oregon building state regulated, passed a law saying that any new parking needed to be built with 20% EV readiness. So EV ready, there's EV capable, EV ready, and EV go. And the capable means that you could run the conduit if you wanted to. EV ready means you've run the conduit but haven't necessarily, like, you could, all you need to do is like plug and play, like put the machine down, everything's right in the spot where you need it, and off you go. And then there's like EV go, as in everything's installed and you go for it. So the 2017 regulation was, if you're in a city of 100,000 or more in Oregon, you are required to make any new parking EV ready. Beaverton didn't fall into that category in 2017. We had about 96,000 people in 2017. So we went ahead with the new garage and took that advice anyway. So the new garage that's being built is 20% EV ready. It's my understanding that there's actually a new regulation that was recently passed that by 2022 or 2023, all of Oregon is going to be building this 20% EV ready. So we are absolutely looking at our EV opportunities out there from a fleet standpoint, which is, I'm not the lead on that project, but our fleet vehicles conversion to electric vehicle, providing public access to EV. Thank you, Chase. EV stands for electric vehicle. And working with our partners. So if you've driven downtown in the last 2 years, there's a new PGE has installed an EV system at Broadway and Canyon. There's a public parking garage, or not public parking garage, public parking lot right behind the Shell station on Broadway and Canyon. And there are 6 EV stations in there that we partnered with PGE to have them install their machines. We essentially said, you do the work, we'll approve it. You mess with it, like, you know, you're responsible for it. They improved the parking lot a little bit. They restriped, they laid new asphalt. It's quite nice. So we are willing to work with both our private partners and our public partners like PGE, as well as working on it on our own. So anything that we build, we are working on that EV ready. So the Public Safety Center also installed EV. Chase, do you want to ask your questions?
Absolutely. We have a few
Or are we,
minutes.
I don't know what time it is.
We have a few minutes left. I just want to say first too, you know, working with Molly and Tyler, it's like going back to school again. I learned so much from every time we meet together on these projects and topics. And I want to encourage you all and thank you all for your questions. And if you have more, please send them our way between meetings. If something comes up, let us know. And we really want to get back to you. We're lucky at the city of Beaverton to have smart folks like Molly and Sara and everybody else who can come back even when I'm just like, I have no clue. I can get it on to them and get it back to you all and hopefully find out more and learn from you all and your questions like we are tonight. So thank you for that. And thank you, Molly. I wanted to take a moment from this, seeing there's so much going on, and just think about, no need to share about it yet, a positive parking experience you had somewhere. And I know that might even seem like a juxtaposition to some people, positive and parking, like a time that it went smoothly for you, a time that you were like, wow, I got in, got out, it was perfect, exactly what I wanted, or I found a spot and I was able to go everywhere I wanted around that area. And just kind of dwell on that for a moment, whether it was in Beaverton or elsewhere. And while I'm asking another question, or for the rest of the night, if you want to just pop that into the chat, feel free to drop that in there. Again, remember, we do save the chat for the minutes, but share with us a good parking experience so that we can learn from that and think about how we can prioritize that in our other engagements and how we're talking with folks. So while you all are thinking about that, I wanted to go back and read the magic wand answers from last time we came back. So just to reiterate the things you've already shared with us. So while I have these pulled up, if you want to use your reactions, if you're new to Zoom, the reactions are down in the bottom button of your screen. You can see them there. They're fun. You can do little things like celebratory, heart, smiles, and thumbs up. If you really like something I read off, use one of your reactions and just share with us that you think that's a really great idea. So this is from the magic wand exercise of what the perfect things were, or the things, if you had a magic wand, you could make one fix or change what you would do. Molly, any other thoughts on that before I lead in?
Nope, that sounds great. The other thing that I just, so that when you're thinking about who you think the community should engage in with open space projects, I know Sara asked that question, if there are community groups, community members that you think should really be targeted to make sure they're involved. Same goes for parking. So if you have ideas, again, throw that in the chat, email Tyler, me, or Chase, and let us know if there's somebody that you think, like, please make sure that you've reached out to these folks or that you've scheduled time with this group. That's really important to us. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Molly. Okay, so shared last spring and an entire world years ago, it feels like. you listed a couple of ideas with your magic wand, what you would fix or change. So one of them was looking at underground parking, parking that fits normal size cars. So right sizing those spaces, better parking spaces specifically on Broadway, safe crossing on main arterials. And related to that, you talked about maybe pedestrian bridges, other ideas like that. Connectivity between north and south. So again, kind of tied to that. And then allowing paid privately owned parking. More shared parking between day and night businesses. And then more bike parking. So those are the ones we got last time. Who wants to shout out a couple of them? Maybe we'll pick Alan, or if I can see everybody's face here, I can pick someone if you want to raise your hand. If you have another thing that with a magic wand you would fix or change related to parking.
Now, I'd go back to starting with that public-private partnership, and we've got to get over this liability piece. It's just unused parking spaces after hours. So we have to get over that in one way, shape, or form.
I think Chase froze. So thank you for that. I would love to work with, if you guys have any ideas, I am open to them. I would love to keep that program rolling and grow it. Chase, you are very frozen.
I think you can still hear me though, yes?
Yeah.
Now we can, yes.
Oh, great. Well, you get to see me slowly acting out any question. Any other thoughts for you all? What would you change or fix if you ruled the world, if you had the magic wand?
I think something simple would just be better signage, particularly about the library. I mean, I know from these meetings that we can park there, but I think if I just drove by, I wouldn't necessarily, that wouldn't be clear. And it's such a huge lot and it's so well located. I think that more people would be interested in doing that.
Can people park at the high school lot?
No, those are BSD property. There are opportunities for shared parking agreements if we're ready to go down that route. I feel like people feel like the West Library lot is a little bit more proximate to sort of the core of Old Town. But if we get to that point, I will reach out to them for sure.
Is there a possibility that maybe creating incentives, and I don't know why the Beaverton School District doesn't do this, but I remember when the Timbers started playing the professionally here in Portland, Lincoln High School, they opened up their parking lot, and they obviously people were paying for parking. I know it was a sporting event, and everybody going there is willing to pay whatever. But if that is an opportunity, even maybe to partner with some of the businesses that they will then donate to school programs or charity organizations, maybe, charging a couple bucks for parking.
That's a great idea. Thank you, Oswaldo. In fact, I know that a couple of the churches in the area, at least in previous years, allowed Boy Scouts to charge for parking during the farmers market, so that they could then donate it back to Boy Scouts or whatever nonprofit they were raising money for at the time. But yeah, it was essentially just allowing them to do that, and it was successful.
Okay.
Couple of thoughts I have on the parking. Hey Molly, it's been a while.
Hi Josh.
So I've had some friends that have parked where they shouldn't have parked in the evenings in private parking lots, and it wasn't super clear to them though that they would get towed. I'm just wondering if there's any type of initiative to work with those property owners to make it a little bit more clear that there are some parking lots that the city had agreements with that you can park in, but some that you should not. And it's pretty clear.
Yeah, prior to COVID, that was the towing issue was a lot more of an issue than it has been with COVID, because a lot of those lots have either been used for open air or people have been a little nicer and not towed as much. Chase and I were actually just starting to like piece together an idea for like a towing education campaign, and it was going to be geared towards not only business owners and the community, but also towards tow companies around best practices, as well as looking at some other state regulations and other states that have and cities that have various tow ordinances. It gets very touchy when it's private property, and us trying to instruct people on how to use their parking. But we do want to do an education campaign around that. And I think that as things ramp back up again, it will become a higher priority. I also know that that is a topic that is near and dear, or at least used to be near and dear to our mayor's heart. So she doesn't like private party towing. So we will, we will definitely continue to try to figure some of those things out. The more we get people to share, the less towing that's required.
Okay, great, thank you. The other question I have is that small triangle right near City Hall, near the car dealership. Can folks park there, or is that off limits?
Now, that is part of the Francis property, and it is still within the lease of the Ford dealership right there. I do believe a number of their employees park there, but that is private property.
Hey, Molly, in the interest of time, for
Yeah.
everybody, I'm going to ask if we have any other questions. We'll go through Tyler. And thank you. As
Perfect.
always, it's a wonderful,
Thank you.
wonderful information you share. So we'll look forward to hearing how the survey goes.
Great, thank you. I look forward to touching base with you guys again soon. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Molly.
Mike.
Tyler, you guys want to do your update?
Yeah, I'm going to kick it over to Chase. So Chase, your phone working?
I think so.
Yeah, you're loud and clear.
Sorry for the odd issues there. That was an interesting one. The last thing I wanted to wrap up on that parking project, and this ties into the Bureau area updates, is just that we do have so much going on. And I wanted to reiterate kind of our perspective. And part of this was in our strategy that we gained from talking with you all about our community engagement, that we want to approach not necessarily on a per project basis, but really expanding to work on approaching the community more on topics or how they may engage with something. So bringing those 3 parking projects together tonight, we're also hoping to bring out to the community in that way too. So seeking ideas and feedback on that so that we can make sure we're covering everything that's going on with our community and hearing from people, but not overburdening with here's 14 different things that functionally from the user's side may not seem so different. So just thinking about that as we're working on this. I do have a few updates, a couple items that have finished up recently. The Hyatt House Hotel, if you've had a chance to go walk in, take a look at it, it's really looking fantastic. It's now got its final occupancy. I know they are still looking for a business for the main floor there, for a restaurant or something like that. But right now, that is one of our projects that we're going to be taking off our list next time around because it's completed up. Tyler, anything else you want to say about Hyatt House?
No, but they were, I think it was over Memorial Day weekend. They're going paid. We have, we want more parking, or guide us to where we can do more parking. So not to just tie parking in, but it's a very urban design, as we heard in Ash's presentation. And because of the numbers that are coming in over Memorial Day weekend, we're hoping that our overall visitors that are staying in our hotels here in Beaverton. They're starting to gradually go up. So that's good news.
Yes. Yep. And one of the other things that we're tracking right now is a lot of our CIP projects. So one of those is a water line replacement that just finished up over on Griffith Park. So when you get the Bureau area updates, if you look down towards the end, you'll find a lot of those too. And sometimes those are things that will affect traffic in your area or see construction crews. And if you're curious, you can usually look on there and go, oh, there's that project. A little update on our grant programs. We have 13 storefront grants in progress. Those are storefront renewals that are getting money out to folks to be able to spruce up, work on the frontage of their buildings. We also have 15, or no, I have another 14 tenant improvement programs. So those are those interior improvement programs. Some of them are both. So some businesses are getting both inside and outside help. Recently, Mocha Tea House, if you've seen that over there, they just finished up their inside and their exterior improvements, and it looks amazing. In addition, Tan Cafe, fantastic spot over in the Broadway area. Other updates, the Loop project, they finished some of their initial engagement, and now they're working on their design alternatives. So they're going to actually be coming here to visit you all in August and want to share some of those with you. And you're going to be one of the first groups again to provide feedback on what's going on. So people want to come to URAC. We have Tyler and I get folks all the time now asking like, can you come this summer? And we're having to like figure out how to fit it all into the schedule. In the same way, Downtown Equity Strategy is going to be coming back in August. Right now, they're spending a lot of time working on fine-tuning the engagement and really with a project as important as figuring out how we're going to be more equitable in our community engagement and our planning. They're really taking the time to look at that carefully and consider who we should be talking to. And we're working closely with our consultants, Vision Action Network, and their team to figure out who's the players in different parts of that and who we should be going out and speaking with and what a realistic timeline looks like, where we're not having the timeline dictate that we have to shorten community engagement, but rather how long does it really take to hear from people on this and reach folks that we haven't reached before? So they'll be coming back and talking more about it in August. Finally, one other thing I wanted to put on your radar, we're just starting discussions about a 10-year celebration for the establishment of the urban renewal area. And I will want to be hearing from you all how we can tell that full story. Right, we've talked a lot about the impacts and the benefits of urban renewal and how we can celebrate what we've done while also telling the story of the people and of the situations that have all come around our urban renewal work. So I'll be coming back and talking with you more about that, and the 10-year celebration should be happening in some form in November. That's all I got for you today. When we finish this next Bureau area update, we'll send it out to you separately. We're just getting it together for the early Bureau this month. So we have some final updates to get in there and you should be seeing it. Any questions?
Thank you, Jason. Alan, before you go to the minutes, two things from me. Thank you to those who are involved with the Bureau Budget Committee and the recommendation to the Bureau Board. The Bureau Board will be having a hearing Tuesday, June 15th on the budget. So be listening or watching that or participating if you so desire. That starts at 5:30 on the 15th. Also, as Oswaldo mentioned at the very beginning before we went live, July 5th is not going to be a URAC meeting. That is the federal holiday for the 4th of July. So we will not be meeting until, as Chase mentioned, August will be the next one. So with that, Alan, I'm going to kick it over to you and we'll be done almost on time.
Tyler, do we have enough membership to approve the minutes? Take a motion.
We did earlier. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We
Seven.
do. Yes.
And-
Yep. Thank you.
And also, though, I have to drop out for the May minutes as I wasn't there, so.
That's fine. Yep. We still have a quorum, so you're okay to go ahead
Perfect.
and
So
take an
somebody
action.
wants, somebody wants the motion and second the approval of minutes for April and May.
I move to approve the April, May minutes.
Okay, Eric, seconded.
I will second that motion.
Okay, Nathan, all those in favor? Thumbs up. Perfect. Motion passes. Tyler, is that it for business? For
That is it, Alan,
Seven.
unless there's any questions, comments. Okay, Alan, fantastic job tonight. Way to keep us right on target. Nice job. And
Yeah, I
thank
did
you
a
all
little
for.
bit of a Inez Vitko school of timekeeping there. I wasn't quite as on top of it as she was, but.
I was waiting to get
Definitely, yeah.
nudged. Should we kick him out? Should we kick him? But you didn't do that. You did a great job. Thank you, everyone. Have a pleasant
Great
evening,
night, everybody.
and we'll see you in
Good night.
August. And
Yeah,
please
good
reach out to
stuff.
us.
Yeah, everyone in
Thank
August.
you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good job, Chase. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it as always.
Technically trying tonight.
No, I think all the city staff is having
Kelly, I
problems.
think we're still recording as well too.
Thank you, God. I've been sitting here multitasking, trying to get something done for Javier at the same time. Record. Where? Stop.